Thanks very much for the introduction, Margaret. That's great. And first of all, I want to start with an apology, which is from Marie Todd, the Minister for Children. I think some of you met Marie last night in Parliament. She was really keen to be here, but she's been called to Parliament and she needs to give evidence in Parliament, so she doesn't really have an option. Unfortunately, she couldn't come along today, so you got me, the substitute. And I'll do my best, basically. I'm the Chief Social Work Advisor, as Margaret says. I've been with the government now for 2.5 years. And before that, I was Director of Health and Social Care in North Ayrshire. And before that, worked in Glasgow for a very, very long time. So I'm a West Coast person. And I know I've so far met quite a lot of East Coast people today, but I have in the course of the last 2 years managed to get round all of Scotland. I've been to every local authority, and I'll say a wee bit more about that later. I'm really pleased to be here today to celebrate Adoption Week Scotland, and to think about what we do and to think about the practice that you are involved in a day-to-day basis. So Adoption Week Scotland is really important in terms of raising the profile of adoption, of raising the profile of the huge difference that's made by families when they agree and apply to become adopters and when they bring children into their homes, but also the huge difference that's made by you guys every day as you support people who want to adopt and people who are already involved in adoption. I was lucky enough to, as one of the jobs that I've been given in government last year, I think it was just last year, to chair the review of adoption and fostering and kinship care allowances review group, which was a national review group involving representation from across the sectors. And we were looking really at what was needed in terms of support. I think it's fair to say that in terms of adoption, the huge issue that came through was about post-adoption support, the variation in post-adoption support and the absolute requirement for families, most families, to have a form of adoption support. One of the issues that came through that might be worth thinking about is also about as families maybe have less contact with their support, and particularly as children are growing a bit older, and particularly around the teenage years, which we know has always been sometimes problematic, how those families get back in touch and get support quickly, but also how young people themselves get support. And that was one of the issues our group was thinking about. I don't think that we came up with the right kind of solutions. We were looking really around universal services and what they can do for children in that situation. But that's something I think we want to think about. It's in terms of the national review, I think the importance of the support that you provide was absolutely clear. And I'm glad to see the breadth of what you're going to consider today. I was really heartened to see that your support, the discussion you're going to have later on in the World Cafe event looks at everything from support to birth families, to support to adoptive families, but also support to young people, support to siblings. All really important issues, and I'm glad to see that we're taking that much wider view in terms of support to people who are involved in adoption. You'll know that one of the issues, I think it's fair to say, unfortunately, that resources are tightening, and they have been tightening for quite some time. And I think that one of the issues that we face is that there probably isn't as much money around just now as there has been in the past. So it's really important actually that we do share the really good practice that there is across Scotland. And I, because I've just recently travelled round the whole of Scotland and met with all the people involved in children's services planning in Scotland, know that there is a lot of really good work going on, and that's reflected in your agenda today and in the things you're going to talk about. One of the things that ministers often ask in Scottish Government is, why do areas not share the best practice with each other, and why do they not learn from each other, and why is that not straightforward? And that's the common question from health to children's services to justice services. Every minister that I've worked with so far in the last 2.5 years has asked the same question. So it's really good that we're having this event today, which is about you who are involved in this practice directly sharing with each other and learning from each other. And we're going to hear about some research shortly, which I think will also help us nationally to be able to share the information about what families can expect, but also how you can contact each other and learn from each other and support each other. If you've got ideas about how we can make that better and how government can help in that, then I think we would be really interested to hear that, because it's one of these really difficult and wicked issues that basically we just don't seem to get over in Scotland. And that's despite the fact that we've funded Celsius, for example, to support children and families practitioners across Scotland. We still seem to struggle. So if you've got ideas about things that we can do to make it better and make it easier for you, then please pass them on, and Celsius will feed back to us in terms of the outputs from today as well. And actually, I think my colleague Tara is likely to arrive in the next 10 minutes if she's not here, and Tara's going to be here for the day as well. So we're really interested in what you're saying and what your outputs are from today. You'll know in Scotland, I said that I've just recently completed a Scottish-wide tour of all the children's services planning partnerships. And one of the issues in Scotland, I think, that we've recently been struggling with, let's put it that way, is around about information sharing, around about getting it right for every child, which is our Scottish approach to partnership working around children and families. I just wanted to say a bit about it, because I kind of feel if I appear and don't say anything about it, you'll all be thinking she's avoiding the really difficult issue that government have just basically have changed direction on, let me put it that way. I want to reiterate that getting it right for every child is absolutely embedded across Scotland. What I've seen across Scotland in talking to children and families practitioners and strategic planners is their absolute commitment to getting it right for every child. I think that the approach around prevention and early intervention is not as embedded as we would like it to be, but that's one of the things we want to really do within Scotland, is move forward in terms of that partnership approach around children. Why is that important? I think it's really important that we in social work are working alongside our colleagues in education and health, so that when families begin to struggle, and when that begins to impact on their children, we can make sure they get the right help at the right time, and to prevent as much damage and harm coming to children as we possibly can. We also need to support those practitioners to make sure that when children can't remain in their families safely, that we get them to the right place in the system as quickly as we can. And we need to support our other colleagues within social work who work, particularly those who work around the child protection area, and we're doing a lot of work. We're about to reissue the child protection guidance in Scotland, and that'll be out for consultation shortly, and we'll look forward to your comments as well, is that we recognise when children cannot remain with their families, that we move to get them into a permanent placement and permanent relationship as quickly as we possibly can. Getting it right for every child is about how we respond across the system of children's services to make sure that children get to the help that they need, and that their families also get the help that they need. And I think in Scotland we probably at times have not always emphasised that issue around family support and the right support to families at the right time, and that's something that we want to address as well. So GIRFEC is here to stay. It's not something that as a government we are leaving behind us at all. And in fact, I think what we really want to think about is how we move getting it right for every child forward into a real pragmatic approach around, which is about a team around a child, and how we respond to families as quickly as we can and as appropriately as we can across the system. For you, you're at the other end really in terms of getting it right for every child in a sense, because you're supporting children where we've hopefully already begun to make decisions about permanency. And I know that that is frustrating in terms of some of the length of time that takes, and that there are things that probably we can do around some of that. I know that some of you have been working really hard around the impact of that length of time for decision making for children, and have come up with some quite innovative ideas. So it'd be good to share those innovative ideas today. I know you all know about the importance of relationships, and there's a couple of things have come through recently, I suppose, in the last sort of 12, 18 months, and many social workers that I talk to kind of feel like, well, we knew that anyway. And one of them is the importance of relationships, and the importance that it has for children, that they have trusted adults in their lives. That's your day in, day out business. You know that. The importance of supporting those adults to be able to continue to support children and maintain that relationship no matter what the difficulties are that they face, and that is your day-to-day work. But it's also about how we avoid disruption, how we avoid breakdown, and how we continue to support families. I know that all of you know that sometimes we don't always listen to the new evidence that's coming through because we kind of think we know it. I know it's day in, day out part of your work. The other part that really I have had a number of discussions with social workers about is the adverse childhood experiences work that's coming through, and the evidence around the impact of adverse childhood experiences on children. I know for many of you, you know that. But I think we should just be aware that there is new evidence coming through, and it does us all good to look at that new evidence and to consider that new evidence in how we relate to children, but also how the families that you work with relate to children. But today's about celebrating the work you do. It's about sharing it, and it's about making sure that in Scotland we provide the best possible support that we can to families, so that children feel that they are supported and cared for in as good an environment as possible. I think you're going to see huge examples from across Scotland today of really, really good practice. And I'm sorry that I can't stay to hear all of it, but it's just one of these things. Because I had to step in for the Minister late, it meant that I had other things in my diary, so apologies for that. What's really important is that we continue to push forward in terms of the support for adoption, that we continue with our assessment processes, that I know that 27 local authorities have already taken part in the PACE programme, but that we think how we share that experience and the learning from the PACE programme across the whole of Scotland, and how we spread the practice in the best way that we can. You'll all know that the independent care review is due to report at the beginning of next year. I have no doubt that what they will say will be very challenging. They have already raised the issue of siblings loud and clear, and sibling placement we know is difficult, and that's something we need to get our heads around. It's something we need to think about. And children are saying, and young people with lived experience are saying very clearly to us that they must remain, if they can, with their siblings, and must at least remain in contact with their siblings. That presents challenges to all of us, I think, in terms of placements and in terms of the ease with which we can place families. But it's something we need to think about as we develop our approaches in Scotland to support children into families. The care review will challenge everybody, I think, in social work about and it already has. It's engaged thousands of young people in terms of talking about their experience of care. And that's care right across the piece, from residential care through to foster care and kinship care. Children are involved in the discussions as well. And I've no doubt that much of what they will say will be challenging to us. But we need to listen, and we need to work alongside the care review and to think about what care looks like going forward in Scotland. I have no doubt that foster care and adoption is absolutely crucial for all as we go forward in Scotland, but there will be other things that the care review will say that need to make us think about the processes, which I know you all think about on a daily basis, but also about how children have experienced the care system in Scotland. And I'm looking forward to that. I've had a number of discussions with the care review around the kinds of things that they're thinking about, but I'm looking forward to hearing what they've got to say. And they've done a lot of really thorough work, and they will represent the voices of many children and young people who have been involved in care. So we have many challenges to come, But I think whatever happens, we need to continue to try and grow the number of adopters and the number of placements for children, and to make sure that those placements are as successful as we possibly can. So I'd like to wish you well for today and want to hear the outcome of the discussions that you've got, and I know that we will hear back from Celsius in terms of any outputs and any absolutely brilliant ideas that you have. I'm sure there are going to be many today. So thanks very much for coming along. I really hope you get the most out of it that you can, and wish you well.